Welcome! Today we're about to unravel the story of a climate phenomenon that quietly shapes weather across continents, La Niña. Its name, which means the little girl in Spanish, might sound gentle, but its impact is anything but small. Today, we're diving into La Niña, a gentle name for a climate force with global reach. This event is born in the vast Pacific Ocean, but its effects are felt in nearly every corner of the world, influencing everything from rainfall to temperature extremes. Think of La Niña as one half of a Pacific Ocean climate dance, with El Niño as its partner. These two phases are like siblings, each taking turns to lead, and together they orchestrate dramatic shifts in global weather. Together they form the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. This cycle is one of the most important drivers of year-to-year climate variability, affecting weather patterns, agriculture, and even economies worldwide. During La Niña, strong trade winds push warm Pacific water westward, letting cold, nutrient-rich water rise near South America. This upwelling not only cools the ocean surface, but also supports rich marine life, impacting fisheries and coastal communities. This cooling triggers atmospheric changes that ripple across the globe, shifting jet streams and weather patterns. The altered winds and pressure systems can change the course of storms, influence monsoons, and even affect the timing of seasonal rains. In North America, La Niña often means colder, stormier winters up north, with more snow and ice than usual. These conditions can disrupt travel, challenge infrastructure, and create memorable winter scenes. Meanwhile, the southern United States tends to experience drier, warmer conditions, which can stress crops and increase the risk of drought and wildfires. It can also fuel hurricanes in the Atlantic, making storm seasons more intense and unpredictable. And beyond the Americas, La Niña can trigger droughts or floods elsewhere, from parched fields in Australia to overflowing rivers in Asia and Africa. For Europe, the connection is subtle, a nudge, not a shove, making it a puzzle for forecasters. The effects are less direct, but La Niña can still tip the balance, influencing winter temperatures, rainfall, and even the frequency of storms. The latest La Niña emerged after a strong El Niño ended in mid-2024, with ocean temperatures dropping by December. Scientists tracked these changes closely, watching for signs of how the new pattern would unfold. Forecasters watched closely. Would this be a powerhouse event, or something different? Each La Niña is unique, and its impacts can vary depending on other climate factors at play. As it turned out, this La Niña set the stage for a surprising winter forecast in 2025, catching many by surprise and reminding us just how interconnected our planet's climate truly is. The La Niña that began in December 2024 was weak and short-lived, more of a whisper than a shout. Unlike the dramatic La Niña events of the past, which have sometimes brought wild swings in weather across the globe, this one arrived quietly and faded just as quickly. For many meteorologists, it was almost as if La Niña tiptoed onto the climate stage, barely making its presence felt before slipping away. Sea surface temperatures in the Niño 3.4 region barely dipped below the threshold, and by March 2025, the Pacific was back to ENSO-Neutral. The cooling was so subtle that it was difficult to distinguish from normal fluctuations. Scientists watched closely, but the telltale signs of a strong La Niña, persistent cool waters, and robust atmospheric changes never truly materialized. This quick fade meant La Niña had little time to shape global weather, leaving forecasters without a dominant climate driver for winter. In the absence of a strong ENSO signal, weather patterns across the northern hemisphere were left to be influenced by other factors, such as the North Atlantic Oscillation and local atmospheric conditions. For weather watchers, this made the season more unpredictable and less tied to the familiar rhythms of ENSO cycles. Scientists suspect record-warm global oceans made it hard for La Niña's cooling to persist, like trying to keep an ice cube from melting in a hot room. The background warmth of the world's oceans, which have been steadily rising due to climate change, likely overwhelmed the modest cooling effect of La Niña. This tug-of-war between natural cycles and human-driven warming is becoming more apparent with each passing year. The event's weakness meant its influence was limited, especially for regions far from the Pacific, like Europe. In past years, a strong La Niña might have nudged European weather toward colder or drier conditions, but this time the continent experienced a relatively typical winter. Local weather systems and regional climate patterns played a much larger role in shaping day-to-day conditions. The Atlantic hurricane season was nearly over by the time La Niña arrived, and its global impacts were muted. With the Pacific quickly returning to neutral, there was little opportunity for La Niña to influence tropical storm development or alter the usual end-of-year weather patterns. For many, it was a season that passed with little fanfare. For Europe, the story was clear. La Niña's influence was minimal, and other weather patterns would take the lead. The continent's winter was shaped more by shifting jet streams, regional pressure systems, and the lingering effects of a warming planet than by any single global climate event. This fleeting event is a sign that future ENSO cycles may behave differently as the planet warms. Scientists are now questioning whether traditional patterns will hold, or if we are entering an era where climate change blurs the lines between El Niño, La Niña, and neutral years. The 2024 to 2025 La Niña serves as a reminder that our climate system is evolving and that surprises may become more common. The 2024 to 2025 La Niña left the climate stage quickly, opening the door for new weather players. As Europe and the world look ahead, the lessons of this gentle La Niña will help scientists and forecasters prepare for a future where the rules of climate may be rewritten. With La Niña gone by March 2025, its direct influence on Europe's winter vanished. ENSO-neutral conditions mean Europe's weather is no longer steered by the Pacific. Forecasters can't rely on the classic La Niña playbook. The main story now shifts to local patterns. Europe's winter will be shaped by chaotic short-term changes rather than a single global driver. This makes long-range forecasts much trickier. One big puzzle piece is missing. Instead of a predictable pattern, expect a classic, unpredictable European winter. For those hoping for a La Niña-driven season, scientists say, don't count on it. Winter 2025 will be ENSO-neutral, with the key drivers much closer to home. The North Atlantic's atmospheric patterns will now call the shots. With the Pacific quiet, Europe's winter is now in the hands of the North Atlantic Oscillation, NAO, and Arctic Oscillation, AO. These pressure patterns are the true heavyweights, shifting week to week and making forecasts a challenge. A positive NAO brings mild, wet, stormy weather to northern Europe, while the south stays drier. A negative NAO weakens the jet stream, letting Arctic air plunge south, cue cold snaps and snow. The AO works similarly, but on a broader scale, controlling how much polar air escapes south. The NAO is the Atlantic arm of the AO, and both are volatile, unpredictable, and crucial in an ENSO-neutral year. Their wild swings are the biggest source of uncertainty for Europe's winter. In 2025, these patterns will dictate the continent's day-to-day weather reality. What's an ENSO-neutral winter like in Europe? In a word, variable. Without El Niño or La Niña to set the tone, the weather becomes a tug-of-war between competing patterns. Europe won't be stuck in one mode. Expect a mix of mild, wet spells and sudden cold snaps. A positive NAO might bring spring-like conditions, only to be replaced by a negative NAO and a deep freeze. This back and forth is the hallmark of a neutral winter, with the NAO and AO wrestling for control. Long-range forecasts become guesswork. Short-term predictions are more reliable. For Europeans, it means being ready for anything, heavy coats and rain gear in the same week. The unpredictability can be frustrating, but it's classic European weather. Winter 2025 promises surprises, with the Atlantic running the show. There's one more wild card in Europe's winter weather story: the stratospheric polar vortex. This powerful phenomenon, high above the Earth's surface, is a swirling mass of extremely cold air that circles the North Pole every winter. It acts like a giant atmospheric barrier, trapping frigid Arctic air and keeping it locked away from the continents below. Most of the time, the polar vortex is stable and strong, keeping the coldest air bottled up far to the north. But this balance is delicate. The vortex sits in the stratosphere, about 10 to 50 kilometers above the ground, and is influenced by complex atmospheric patterns. If it's disrupted, often by powerful atmospheric waves rising up from below, it can weaken or even split apart. This dramatic event is called a sudden stratospheric warming, or SSW, where temperatures in the stratosphere can rise by 50 degrees Celsius in just a few days. When this happens, the jet stream below buckles and twists, opening the gates for Arctic air to surge southward into Europe. The result? Intense cold snaps, heavy snowfall, and sometimes weeks of wintry chaos across the continent. The Beast from the East in 2018 was a classic example of this phenomenon in action, when a disrupted vortex unleashed bitter cold and snowstorms from Moscow to Madrid, paralyzing cities and stunning meteorologists. Some years, La Niña can increase the odds of a polar vortex disruption. But the connection is complicated and not fully understood. Scientists are still studying how ocean temperatures and atmospheric patterns interact to influence the vortex's strength and stability. This winter, the recent La Niña was unusually brief, so its impact on the polar vortex is expected to be very limited. Most experts agree that the chances of a major disruption are lower than in years, with a stronger or longer-lasting La Niña. Still, meteorologists and climate scientists are always on alert, closely monitoring the polar vortex for any signs of instability. It remains the ultimate winter game-changer, capable of turning a mild season into a deep freeze almost overnight. As we look ahead to 2025, the behavior of the polar vortex could make all the difference for Europe's winter, reminding us that in the world of weather, the unexpected is always possible. Not all La Niñas are the same. Their impact depends on where the Pacific cooling occurs. Scientists distinguish between Eastern Pacific La Niña and Central Pacific La Niña Modoki. Eastern Pacific events can favor colder, drier winters in northern Europe by blocking mild Atlantic winds. Central Pacific events may bring milder, wetter winters by strengthening the jet stream, but these are tendencies, not guarantees. Other climate factors can override them. The 2024 to 2025 La Niña was too weak and short-lived to fit either pattern or influence Europe. Its muted signature left the Atlantic as the dominant force for the coming winter. This highlights how subtle shifts in the Pacific can have far-reaching but sometimes negligible effects. Forecasting is entering a new era, shaped by global ocean warming. Record-high sea surface temperatures are changing how natural cycles like ENSO behave. The weak 2024 to 2025 La Niña may be a sign that warming oceans are suppressing strong cooling events. This challenges old forecasting models as past climate relationships may no longer hold. Scientists are recalibrating, studying how ocean heat affects the NAO, AO, and polar vortex. Each new season is a case study in this evolving climate system. Winter 2025, with ENSO-Neutral conditions and record ocean heat, will provide crucial insights. The lessons learned will help refine forecasts in our warming world. So, what's the verdict for Europe's winter 2025? Expect the unexpected. With La Niña gone and the Pacific neutral, no single climate driver will steer the season. The North Atlantic's unpredictable patterns will shape a winter of swings, mild, wet spells, and sudden cold snaps. Keep your winter gear handy and follow short-term forecasts for the best guidance. Scientists are watching the Pacific for future ENSO shifts and studying how ocean warmth is changing the game. Europe's winter 2025 is a true wild card, a reminder that nature still holds surprises. Embrace the variability, stay informed, and get ready for a dynamic season. For weather watchers and scientists alike, it's a fascinating time to learn and adapt.